The Western Roman Empire kind of always sucked. Every once in a while you have a few cool moments, like Emperor Majorian, but for the most part the Western Roman Empire was doomed from the start. Just 15 years after the Roman Empire had its last and final permanent split in the year 395 into West and East, the Visigoths sacked the city of Rome itself. Other barbarians would famously invade the empire and take away bits and pieces of it for their own kingdoms. One of those groups was the Vandals, who invaded through France and Spain and, along with the Suevian Alans, caused a lot of havoc there. And then eventually the Vandals, with a few Alan allies, crossed the Strait of Gibraltar into Africa in the year 429. The Vandals were promised some land in North Africa in exchange for helping a faction in yet another Western Roman civil war, and then were rather stiffed on that promise. So in response, they attacked and took over Carthage in 439. Normally, the Vandals and Alans could have been considered just another nuisance plaguing the Roman countryside, but in this case they were especially worrisome. Firstly, North Africa was the breadbasket of the Western Roman Empire. They needed those provinces to feed the empire grain, and now it was all lost to the Vandals. Then you have the fact that Carthage was an important naval port for the Romans, so the Vandals were able to capture a huge fleet of unused Roman naval vessels. This means the Vandals were not only the new rulers of Northwest Africa, but were also now able to become pirates. The Vandals raided Sicily while Western Rome was distracted in Gaul in 440, and eventually in 442 the kingdom was recognized by the Western Romans. But even so, problems would continue as the Vandals took control of Sicily, Sardinia, Corsica, Malta, and the Balearic Islands. Then in 455 they sailed up to Rome itself. Pope Leo I managed to convince the Vandals to not harm the people of Rome. The Vandals agreed and in response merely trashed the place so hard that famously the word vandalism became synonymous with warrantless destruction of property. They also kidnapped the Western Roman Emperor's daughters as hostages. However, despite all of these Vandal victories, the Romans had yet to try a large naval engagement with the Vandal fleet. So in the year 468, the Western and Eastern Roman empires decided to team up and build a huge Roman fleet against the Vandals to try and stop them once and for all. The fleets would meet up for battle at Cape Bon. But before we get to the Battle of Cape Bon, let's talk about this week's sponsor, World of Warships. World of Warships is a free game where you can set sail a fleet of mighty naval vessels against enemies of all kinds, in a perfect mix of strategy and action. You can use not only just generic ships, but real historical vessels such as the USS Indianapolis as well. In addition, to keep you on your toes, they even factor in things like weather and gameplay to keep the excitement going. Each week there are updates with new fun missions for you to play, and if you click the link below in the description of this video to sign up for the game now, you can get 250 doubloons, 1,000,000 credits, and a premium USS Langley ship, all by using the code PLAYLangley2019. Let's set sail, and thanks to World of Warships for sponsoring the video. So how many ships were at Cape Bon? We don't know the size of the Vandal fleet, but the Roman fleet we have two rather varying numbers. Early medieval historian Procopius claimed it was as large as 100,000 ships. Meanwhile, medieval historian Cedrenius said it was only 1,113 ships. That's quite a huge difference, to say the least, and most modern scholars have agreed to a number closer to 1,100. But those 1,100 ships had roughly 50,000 men, and it was still going to be a large naval battle, so how did the Vandals pull it off? They kind of did what we historians might call a jerk move. During the night as the battle was going on, the Vandal king Gaiseric had activated a plan of his to turn things around. A lot of the ships the Vandals brought were empty and full of combustible materials, so he lit them on fire and sent them drifting towards the combined Roman fleet. Since all the ships were made of wood, of course, the fire ships forced the Romans to break lines and panic, but they were so crowded together that it wasn't enough and the fire ships reached them, setting many of the Roman ships on fire. The few that could escape were caught by other Vandal vessels attacking from the other directions. The Roman general Basiliscus fled, and his lieutenant committed suicide to evade capture by putting on heavy armor and jumping overboard, the weight drowning him. It was an absolute disaster for the Romans, as at least 10,000 Romans died and at least 100 ships were destroyed. Then some estimate as much as half of the Roman fleet that wasn't destroyed was captured, the other half of course retreating with the general. Basiliscus was so disgraced that when the Eastern Roman Emperor wanted his head, he deliberately remained in hiding inside the Hagia Sophia church for protection until the emperor calmed down and settled for forced exile instead. But it's understandable he was upset because not only was it a humiliating defeat, but the Eastern Roman treasury was now bankrupt. The Western Roman Empire, meanwhile, was pretty much done, and as we all famously know, Rome would be captured by Odoacer in 476, which is only 8 years after this battle. The Vandals would go on to ravage the Western Mediterranean with their maritime kingdom until the Byzantines conquered them 70 years later. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, be sure to subscribe, and of course you can always support this channel by donating to my Patreon, where every donation is really appreciated. I'm Emperor Tigerstar, and I'll see you guys next time.